Salam, Namaste, Adab, and welcome you all for today's event. Today we are going to hear from Father Cedric Prakash, a very well-known Catholic priest from Gujarat, who is also a well-known human rights activist in India. He runs a NGO called Prashant in Ahmedabad. He is a member of the Society of Jesuits of Gujarat. He will be introduced by a well-known advocate of Bombay High Court, Ms. Lara Jesani, who is a human and democratic rights activist. And the concluding remarks will be given by Rohit Prajapati, also a civil liberties and environmental activist, a researcher and a writer. And today's topic is bulldozing democracy in India. So bulldozing democracy in India today. And we all know how India is going through. We are all the time in news, and every now and then, every day is a surprising day. Nonetheless, a lot is already damaged. So let's hear what these three speakers say. So I invite Lara Jesani for the introductory remarks. Please.
Thank you so much for inviting me today. And I'd like to, I tried my best to give an introduction of Father Cedric Prakash, so I don't think he needs an introduction. He has been working for democratic rights and civil liberties on various issues across the board for the last 50 years. And has been pivotal in raising the issue of human rights in Gujarat. At very important junctures, he has been part of the movements, and he's also, apart from the organizations already mentioned by the earlier speaker, he's also a part of People's Union for Civil Liberties. As a fellow member of People's Union for Civil Liberties, I am from Maharashtra. I would first and foremost, like to appreciate the efforts of the diaspora group for actually organizing this session. I think it's very important for us to talk about the kind of attacks that are taking place on democracy in India right now. We need support from all places today. More importantly, I think it is all our common battle for humanity, for peace, for justice. And it's important for us to gather our strength from every single location that we are all coming from. I understand from very, very different locations, but we all have the same objective. I was asked to make introductory remarks on on the topic of today's discourse on the bulldozing of democracy in India. And we know, how I'm sure the title has come about. Very recently, the bulldozer was used as a weapon to target human rights activists in India. And it is being used, in fact, very specifically as a communal tool to oppress, very active Muslim voices. And we saw very recently the attack that took place on the house of Afreen Fatima and Javed Mohammed, in Uttar Pradesh, and also the house was demolished, and Javed Mohammed is in fact, been imprisoned, for a protest that took place on certain remarks that were made by BJP person Nupur Sharma on Prophet Muhammad. So these are the kind of retaliations that are coming from the government and the kind of attacks that are taking place on all those who are dissenting the government or who are providing a critique on different government policies. Now, a democracy can only function if we have the space to provide that critique. Without criticizing the government, we cannot be truly a government of the people, because we cannot hold the government accountable for its actions. And what we're seeing in India is a very systematic shrinkage of that space. As a lawyer, I think my task is to, first and foremost, point out the manners in which this is being done through legal mechanisms and tools. And I would like to in particular highlight, how the three main points that I want to make, but in particular, I would like to highlight how there has been a dismantling of the Indian constitution little by little, uh, by dismantling the protective and social legislations that were in place, which actually protected the rights of the people, which provided social justice. These very legislations are being diluted systematically in order to take away the constitutional values, in order to take away the rights that are enshrined in the Indian constitution. We are all big believers of the Indian constitution and democracy and of peace and non-violence. And we come from a space, where we believe that the world or humanity can only flourish if these ideals are retained. But what we have seen, in India, and I'm sure all of you all also have, through the news, is that, the atmosphere of peace, of justice, of love, of communal harmony are all being vitiated by hate speech, by political gain through bigotry, by by targeting those who are the most marginalized and the vulnerable groups. But one of the most important tools that has been used to do that is the law itself. Is by bringing in these kind of changes, there has been a dismantling of the very fabric of the syncretic fabric of Indian society. Some of the very important legislative changes that were brought in, after this government got power, was first and foremost, bringing in the electoral bonds and the entire non-transparent system with which donations could be made, which were obviously used to fight elections. These are obviously corporate-driven donations, but there is absolutely no transparency in how this funding is done. Another very important change that was brought in, was through the process of demonetization, which we all heard about. It's the masses of India who had to suffer so much because of demonetization. It was brought in during at a very important time, at a very crucial juncture, when elections in UP were going to take place. Similarly, we saw centralization of taxation policies, like through the central GST, which took away state power, which took away the financial independence that the states had in order to form their own policies, to form social security measures. All these policies were centralized, and money has been centralized, such that today it is only the ruling party at the center that actually has control over all the money. Also, we saw, a lot of hate-driven, legislations that came in, like the triple talaq bill, which criminalized the action of triple talaq, while the Supreme Court had already passed a judgment, rendering the entire practice of triple talaq void. It was taken a step further, and a bill was brought in to criminalize triple talaq, which again was to instill a fear in the mind of the community. Similarly, there have also been attacks, very gendered attacks on issues of gender, sexuality, which were brought in through the transgender bill, where the right of self-determination of transgenders were taken away. I do a lot of environmental legislations, and we have seen that there's been such a huge shrinkage of space in courts as far as the environment is concerned, because so many of the environmental laws have been diluted. The very important rights that community had to participate were all taken away, and these are all chips on democracy, because by centralizing these power, by taking away the power of local communities, okay, what has actually happened is that the local communities have been rendered powerless. They have been rendered as their voices have been stifled and they have been silenced, and instead there has been a stronger nexus between the businesses and the political powers in order to take away their land and resources. We've also seen, apart from that, and I'm sure all of you must have heard of the very big, struggle that took place by the farmers and farmer organizations against the farm laws that were brought in. There were 3 farm laws that were brought in, which again was taking away the autonomy of the farmers. Similarly, we have also seen a very huge chip on environmental laws, which have eased up development. And all these developmental rights have gone to the corporate, or the natural resources, the public resources. So there has been a systematic attack on democracy. There has been and especially on the public participation process. What is democracy? Democracy is for us to elect our own representatives and dialogue with them constantly. Either we do that by lobbying with them, by writing representations to them, by petitioning, or by going to court. And all of these, various pillars have been systematically eroded. The second very important point that I want to make, which is also, which also happened through very concerted efforts, is the weaponizing of law. Law itself has been weaponized, it has been misused against those who still dare speak against the government or who dissent against the government policies. And this we have seen through targeting of human rights defenders. For NGOs, the civil society that was actually doing a lot of work on the ground for the people, were targeted through FCRA amendments. The Foreign Contribution Regulation Act was amended systematically in order to in the name of regulation, to stop certain organizations from functioning. Also, their licenses were suspended, renewals were not allowed, the licenses were cancelled. So this has been a way to ensure that the civil society cannot function. Apart from that, there has been targeting of human rights defenders. We've very recently seen, Tista Setalvad, a very, noted human rights activist and journalist who worked, in the aftermath of the Gujarat genocide to provide justice for the victims, and who worked alongside the victims in order to also litigate in a very arduous litigation in courts in order to fight this struggle for justice, has been very recently arrested by the Gujarat ATS. And, a day after the judgment was passed by the Supreme Court in the Zakia Jafri case. And in fact, the court itself has, enabled this kind of a prosecution against her by passing certain remarks in that judgment. We've also seen what happened very recently, just last week, with Mohammed Zubair, a journalist and co-founder of Alt News. And Alt News has done very important work in India to actually combat the fake news and hate speech that that has been a tradition right now for the last few years, ever since this government came in. So these kind of these kind of attacks on human rights activists, on defenders, has become commonplace. We also have the Bhima Koregaon case, in which several activists are under arrest, and Father Stan Swami, in fact, perished in jail, and just in the next few days, it's going to be a year since then. And this has all been, a concerted effort to stop the kind of work that they were doing, the people that they were working for, who are all from, the marginalized communities, Adivasis, vulnerable groups. And also, I cannot mention the Delhi riots conspiracy case, in which, activists, student activists like Umar Khalid and Gulfisha Fatima and all were arrested. And they still are actually, Umar Khalid is still under arrest along with several others, where in fact the victims itself are actually being targeted. Here we're seeing a new kind of rule of law under display. Actually, it is a subversion of the rule of law, but we are seeing that it is the victims of violence itself who are now under attack through the legal machinery, through the criminal justice mechanism, which are actually supposed to provide them justice, are actually working against them. So it's a very difficult time today for us, who believe in Indian democracy, who believe in constitutional values, who love India, and who are staying here fighting for justice daily, to actually witness this kind of a collapse. Finally, the last point that I wanted to make is, there is also a very dangerous, very sinister sort of an agenda in place here to render obsolete parliamentary and social democracy in our country. And this is being done through hate politics. This is being done through rendering the entire election process itself, completely useless. Like what has happened right now. I come from the state of Maharashtra. I'm speaking from Bombay right now. And in Maharashtra, the state government, has been taken over, was overnight, made to collapse by, due to mass defection that took place in the party. It's not just a defection; it's a betrayal that took place of people's votes. This is all being done through horse trading and purchasing of MLAs. So today, even if you lose an election, and there are many states today which are functioning with BJP, ruling those states in alliance with other parties, where actually this is the manner in which they have set up the government. So even if you lose, you go and purchase the MLAs and somehow set up the government. And this is exactly the manner in which electoral democracy itself is being, is being vitiated. We're also seeing a very strong collusion with businesses, where a lot of money is being pumped into this agenda of, of hate politics. And there is a strengthening of the non-state actors, the vigilante, the cadres, the RSS and mass organizations, where we are seeing a lot more cases of mob lynching, hate crimes. And I can't, I can't not end this without, highlighting that there's a very important role that the courts have played in all this. And the courts in India were always seen to be more progressive, to stand up for the constitution. There was a we used to put a lot of reliance on the courts to hold up the constitutional rights, to uphold human rights. And right now what we are seeing is that all our battles in courts itself, we see are losing. The courts there is a loss of independence of the courts, and the judiciary is itself not playing the kind of role that we want it to, the vital role that it could, in order to intervene in these kinds of human rights violations that are taking place. And not only this, several of the independent human rights bodies, courts have actually been taken over. There have been political appointments that have taken place in human rights institutions. We have courts such as NGT, which are, a lot of the zonal benches which were shut down. It's the National Green Tribunal. It's like an environmental court in India. Many of the zonal benches were shut down. There is a dilution of, right to information, and several other very progressive legislations that had come in the earlier regime. So the attack is not just on one front. The attack is not just on one community. The attack is actually, I always want to say, on Indian Constitution, on all of us. And while today, Muslims are the ones who are targeted, Dalits and Adivasis, who are the vulnerable groups who are targeted through caste violence, through land grab, and all of this. What we are losing is, our independence. We are losing our Indian Constitution. We are losing the values with which, we wanted to bring up the country. So I think these are very, very difficult times, and we all need to get together to, address them. And I would like to invite Father Cedric Prakash to take this forward and contextualize, the various fears that I've obviously laid out, because while I say all of this, it's not without hope. I believe that we are here, we are going to resist it. And I believe that while the situation is dire, there are a lot of people who are committed to work for human rights in our country. I would like to invite one of them, one very important one of them, Father Cedric Prakash, who has inspired all of us with his work. Please, Father, please go ahead.
Okay, shall I continue, Razi, from where Lara left out? Or are you making any remarks at this moment?
No, please, Father, go ahead.
Okay, good. Thank you, Lara, for that excellent presentation. I always say Lara is one of the hopes for India, for the future. She's charismatic, she's committed, she has her heart, her soul in the right place, and she's the youth, she's the future of India. And the future of India lies with that expression of hope, which she has just given us. She has hope, and we all have hope. And I would like, Lara has given us a broad canvas. While I would try to highlight certain dimensions of that canvas she has presented before, I would like to substantiate also on certain points. My backdrop is over the Constitution of India. I've been keeping this for every single Zoom session I am on just now, because we as Indians, I'm telling all of those present here from India, and all of you who are in the diaspora, have only one sacred book. Yes, I'm a Catholic priest, as I was introduced. I am a Jesuit, but the sacred book for every single Indian is the Constitution of India. And when I say this, I say it with lots of love for my country. I'm committed to the vision and mission of my country, the freedom that our founding fathers and mothers of the Constituent Assembly on that very eventful day of 26 November, first in 1949, but earlier in the struggle for independence, gave our country beginning on 15th of August, 1947, 75 years almost to date. And that is the so sacred and holy book we are proud of, I'm proud of. And I will defend that sacred book come what may, because I'm a citizen of India. No one can take that citizenship from me. And I pledge my loyalty to the Constitution of India, to all the values enshrined in it: justice, liberty, equality, and fraternity, that integrity and unity, the sovereignty, socialism, the secular fabric that makes us a democratic republic. That is the Constitution of India, which is so beautifully summarized in that preamble dated 26th of November, 1949. But what is happening today? We see the democracy and all that is enshrined in the Constitution being bulldozed. Bulldozer has become the symbol of a regime which is fascist. This is exactly what Hitler was doing when he killed hundreds and thousands, millions of Jews and others, all those who stood up to him. And today, we see the slow but sure dismantling of all that is precious in our beloved country. The judiciary, in which we had so much of hope, there is so much to be said. Sometimes you do have good judgments. It's not all, but you can see the way people are co-opted and they will get a promotion. They will become Rajya Sabha members. They will, after the retirement, they will get a plum job, and they have even made, some of them are made ambassadors or whatever. So the police force, we have this case of Nupur Sharma. She's there provided police. No one can take and should take or even threaten anyone. Everyone should live in a free country. No one has the right to take the life of Nupur Sharma. But for much lesser reasons, I'm told to adjust the audio. Please, will you make the audio louder? My audio is full.
Yeah, that's okay. That's okay.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Take the example of Nupur Sharma. She has spoken with a kind of impunity, and now she's given immunity. But for much minor charges, people are thrown into jail. Look at what is happening, whether it is to the Election Commission, whether it is quasi bodies like the National Commission for Minorities, which does not take a stand. These are toothless things, the National Human Rights Commission, and several other groups which should have maintained its constitutional objectivity, which should have stood up for justice and truth, are compromised, are co-opted. For any flimsy reason, you have the Enforcement Directorate, the National Investigation Agency, the CBI, just hounding people who take a stand for truth and justice, for the Constitution of India. Yes, my dear friends, democracy is being bulldozed in India. And we have seen it. Lara has already referred to how Afrien's house was bulldozed just because she took a stand for truth and justice. And the bulldozing has become a symbol of all that is wrong and evil. So if anyone takes a stand for truth and justice, you go and mow down the houses of an entire group. Let it be if they're poor, let it be if they're marginalized, let it be if they're living in the slums. And it happens to be the minorities, usually the Muslims. Look at the draconian laws that have come in. We are talking about freedom of conscience, freedom of religion, and articles in the Constitution, whether it is Article 25 or Article 19, whether the freedom to preach, practice, and propagate my religion, or freedom of conscience, freedom of speech, is guaranteed. These are universal declarations of human rights all over the world, and which India is a signatory of. What have we done over the years? We have slowly made these laws, these rights, these constitutional guarantees, these fundamental rights, toothless and meaningless. You bring in these anti-conversion laws, which is only a bogey. First of all, we ask anyone and everyone, do I have the right to choose the religion of my choice? Yes or no? I'm born into a country, into a nation. If these the politicians can choose, their political party at the drop of a hat, just because they are, they are co-opted. There is a whole file made of them, yeah, and they are paid huge amount of bribes. They go from one party to another, do not respect the voting of the people who have mandated them to be in that party. Who are you, government, to tell me in a matter of conscience I cannot choose my religion? Where Gujarat was concerned, the Supreme Court already gave a stay order to the Gujarat High Court ruling, regarding an amendment to a most draconian law, which was brought on 26th of March 2003, but which became implementable law only 5 years later. On the 1st of April 2021, they brought in a more draconian amendments, which has been stayed by the Gujarat High Court, and this stay has been okayed by the Supreme Court. If I am an adult, can I not marry the person of my choice? Whether I'm a man or a woman, do I have the state to dictate who am I to marry? Or can I not choose the religion of my choice? Look at the journalists who have been hounded, who have been harassed, who have been intimidated, both on the print and electronic media. And some, like Gauri Lankesh, have even been killed. Rationalists have been killed from 2014 onwards. This has been an ongoing, a kind of a Ramayana. You are visible and vocal. You write about truth. You provide excellent evidence, and you're called anti-national. No one is anti-national. In fact, these are people who are taking the cause of the nation forward. These are people who are helping democracy, fighting for truth and justice. Look at what has happened to Mohammed Zubair, the co-founder of Alt News, which Lara also referred to. He's there now. He has been given further, he's sent to further judicial custody. And even today, before the High Court order was passed, a DCP or whoever already spoke to the media saying that he will not be given bail. We have the case of my colleague Tista Setalwan, who has valiantly fought for the victims of the Gujarat genocide of 2002, a whole 3-volume compendium called Crime Against Humanity. Everything was authenticated. We had Justice Krishna Iyer, formerly of the Supreme Court, who headed the the Citizens Tribunal. We had excellent justices like Justice Sawant and Justice Suresh of happy memory, who were part of the Citizens Tribunal. All the people of the Citizens Tribunal were excellent people who belonged to the intellectual, the academic, and the democratic fiber of Indian society. And these were people who listened. There was evidence, and now suddenly you have her in jail today, together with the IPS officer Sri Kumar and Sanjeev Bhatt, who's already languishing in jail for more than 3 years now. they have been sent to another 14 days of judicial custody. So if you stand up for truth, if you speak out for what is right in the country, you're not merely hounded and harassed, you're even killed. And certainly you will have to pay the price of going to jail. Father Stan Swami, in a couple of days now, on the 5th of June, we will complete, as Lara mentioned, 1 year since he died. And for us, we are convinced it was institutional murder. Father Stan Swami's only crime was that he accompanied the Adivasis, the poor and the marginalized, the Dalits and the other subalterns of our society for a more just and humane society. He fought for the Jal, Jungle or Jameen of the Adivasis. He accompanied them. He fought for the Forest Rights Act. He believed in the identity, the cultural difference that made them as the original inhabitants of the land. They are the original people, the indigenous people, Adivasis. He fought for them. And finally, he died on the 5th of July, 2021. And still languishing in jail are about 14 others. 2 of them, Sudha Bharadwaj, who has managed to get bail, and Varavara Rao, who's still on bail, who's sick, are there. But about 13 or 14 of them are supposed to be arrested for no rhyme and reason by the NIA under this draconian Unlawful Activities Prevention Act. And what all of them have done over the years is to side with the victims of injustice, the victims of human rights violations. If you put in human rights defenders, and we have human rights defenders also killed in this country, and I gave you the example of Stan Swami, okay, a fellow Jesuit of mine, a senior to me, of course, but whom I have known for almost the last 50 years, a close friend. I mean, what do you say? The United Nations Human Rights Chief has spoken out, and the government of India is very, very upset because, and they say, who are you? But human rights, if India signs the declaration of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, everyone has the right to speak out in any country of any human rights violation that is happening anywhere. We have several other draconian legislations. We have that classic example of the farm laws. It is technically withdrawn, yes, because for more than a year, farmers across the political divide, across the religious divide, they began calling them Khalistanis. They said it was a Sikh issue. It was a Congress issue. No, it was affecting the small marginalized farmers, and it was catering to the big corporate sector. Those laws were withdrawn, but apparently from what we hear rumors, it will come again back to their co-opting and bribing people. We have the tremendous amount of demonization of the minorities. Definitely the Muslims at the receiving end. But Christians all over India today are also at the receiving end. Yeah. They are attacking churches. They are hounding pastors. They are not providing us with that freedom of conscience, of religion. But they make a non-consequential issue like the hijab a big national issue before the UP elections. And suddenly the loudspeakers become a bone of contention. You speak about a very unconstitutional thing like love jihad. You use, you target people for what they eat, what they wear, how, what they read, what they see, what they say, almost anything. This is exactly what the fascists did in the time of Mussolini and what Hitler's Germany did. This was so characteristic of the apartheid of South Africa too. The Muslims are targeted in many other ways. We saw Article 370 and 35A, with regard to Kashmir. And who is Kashmir going to? It has nothing to do with the Muslims. It's going to the big corporate sector who are destroying that prime terrain, which was Kashmir, that beautiful piece of land which God gave, Mother Earth. We are looking into a thing like the Kashmir files, how this whole issue of the Kashmir Pandits, some of them definitely have suffered, has been exaggerated, and a very fictitious movie has gained legitimacy. It is the way Joseph Goebbels, the Minister of Communications and Information of Hitler, did his work at the time of Nazi Germany. He believed in one axiom: tell a lie 1,000 times and people will believe it. So you start demonizing the Muslims. You start segregating them. You start discriminating them. You start, putting abusive language on perhaps whom they revere, what they revere. And suddenly you're pushing a whole minority to the brink. And then you run with the hare and hunt with the hound. Suddenly the official government of India, after giving legitimacy to the likes of Nupur Sharma and the others, begin to say, oh, she's not a government spokesperson. Who's running the government and who gives her the legitimacy? Why hasn't the government booked her immediately, put her in jail, as they have done to many others without rhyme or reason? We have the education. They have touched. I don't like to use the word saffronization of education, because saffron is a very precious condiment, a very precious commodity, and saffron is also the color of my national flag. I use communalization of education. We have the national education policy, which has come out and is literally being shoved down the throats of every single person who's going to school and to university, who's studying. And the national education policy is clearly discriminatory in its approach. There are plenty of studies being done about it. We have the whole dimension of that education is a federal subject. It should be done by the states, not by the center. Yet, what they're telling us today is that the national education policy needs to have the Bhagavad Gita taught in certain schools. I have no quarrel with the Bhagavad Gita. Why are you not teaching the Quran or the Bible or the Guru Granth Sahib or the Torah? Why are you not teaching the sacred books? We have great religions like Buddhism and Jainism born in India, which were given to the world. Why are we not teaching that in our schools? I think we need to understand. And you look at the way, even minority educational institutions, the rights of minority educational institutions are slowly being taken away. The national education policy is a very clear first step towards the nationalization of education. And we know any fascist ideology first touches education, tries to mold the minds, the innocent minds of children, of youth, to gear them towards an ideology which is anything but in accordance with the Constitution of India. Look what the Constitution tells us about the right to education. And what is happening today, my dear friends, is far away from that. We have the labor codes. Labor today is become exactly what Karl Marx spoke years ago. Is becoming a cog in the in the wheel. What we saw at the outbreak of the pandemic, middle of March 2020, was hundreds and thousands of migrant workers walking back hundreds of kilometers, cycling thousands of kilometers back to their homes. They were not paid their just wage. And suddenly in league with a very corrupt corporate sector, not all of them, I would say, the government has introduced labor codes which denies the workers of their rightful wages, of their rightful hours of work, and perhaps even a permanency in work. Where does this happen? One, definitely you have to be demanding, work from the labor, work from them. But here you are exploiting the labor, and we are not seeing this. Look at, Lara's already referred to the environment, and my friend Rohit will also speak about look at the environmental legislation, how it caters to certain groups, to certain vested interests, like the colliery blocks, the destruction of the forests, and so on. And in all this, the government of India tells a lie and tries to show that it is doing all that is right. But in fact, look at the global indicators on anything. And these are by objective, highly objective people who do not hate India, who love India, but they realize that India is falling down precariously on every single parameter, socially, economically, and the less said about the political system in India, the better. What has happened to our media? Very few of the media, thank God we still have social media, which might be curbed very, very soon. We have paid media, we have codified media. And we have media which spews lies, which spews venom, which spews half-truths, and which dishes out an agenda catering to the whims and fancies of this fascist regime. I think it is important for us to realize how the media is used, whether it is the electronic media, whether it is the print media, and most of them. Look at the big government advertisements that come out in some of the codified media. And let us look how those who take a stand against the government will not get any revenue, which is important for any struggling, especially print media, to get some revenue for the government. The government will not give them. Look at what is happening to employment related to the labor. Unemployment is growing. The corporate sector, look at the growing gap between the rich and the poor. When we are talking about a socialistic pattern of society, the gap between the rich and the poor in India is growing day by day and is becoming yawning. Some of the top economists in the world have warned that before long, the Indian economy will collapse. And many of those who are doing social analysis, studying what is happening in society in India, warn that India is also heading for a civil war. I believe in Ahimsa. It comes from Lord Mahavir, and Mahatma Gandhi propagated it. But I also believe in Satyagraha. And this came from that whole dimension of truth which Lord Buddha gave the people of India, how to have a relentless pursuit for truth. And all the three major Abrahamic religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, do not compromise on non-violence, do not compromise on truth, do not compromise on justice, do not compromise on peace. But when we see the breakdown, the fragmentation, the dismantling of the Constitution of India and the bulldozing of democracy, then I believe whatever the price one has to pay, we have to be visible and vocal and take a stand for today, for tomorrow, for the future in India. I would like to end, my dear friends, because I need to give my dear friend Rohit some chance to do his exposition, with the words I often use at the conclusion of many of my public presentations. It's from our Nobel laureate, Rabindranath Tagore. He truly kind of epitomized the idea of India. We call him Gurudev. He told us, stop your chanting of your beads. Go down to where the tiller is tilling in the field. That is where you find the real India. But my favorite, also from the Gitanjali, is that prayer for India which he makes, where the mind is without fear and where the head is held high, where knowledge is free, where the world has not been broken up into fragments by narrow domestic walls, where words come out from the depth of truth, where tireless striving stretches its arms towards perfection, where the clear stream of reason has not lost its way into the dreary sand of dead habit, where the mind is led forward by thee into ever-widening thought and action, into that freedom of Father, into that heaven of freedom. My Father and my Mother, let my country awake, and let each one who's gathered here today awake, and very especially those who will watch this presentation on YouTube, and many of my friends from the other side will surely be watching it. I want you, my dear friends, to awake first and promise us that we will do not destroy democracy, give up your bulldozers, and retain the pluralistic, the secular, and the sacred fabric of our beloved India. Jai Hind, and God bless you all. Thank you very much.
God, wonderful. Such inspiring and powerful presentation. And now we invite Rohit Sahab to conclude this event. Rohit Sahab?
Yeah, I'm audible now.
Yes.
Yes, you're audible.
I just want to convey a few points in terms of putting the reality on the ground on record. Let me begin with saying that if you are talking about constitution, social justice, human rights, sustainable development, peace and justice, and if you are openly, boldly, consistently raising those issues, then you are directly, indirectly conveyed with the message that you are in queue, wait. That's a scenario. And that situation has led to a scenario, a situation where there is a self-censorship. If you just look at last 2-3 years, you are getting advice not to be vocal by your own supporter, your own people, then please keep quiet for a while. The beginning was while, then not now. Then later on it became that just wait for a few months to go. And now we are told that please wait for a right atmosphere and situation to come to be vocal. So it's better not to speak. And you can find many of very vocal people who used to speak are basically already into the self-censorship. And that's a reality on the ground. Many of them whom we look at indirectly, directly saying certain things, many times in favor of government, but when you talk to them, they're absolutely thinking quite differently what they are forced to say on many channels. Many times we talk in terms of the consent of the people and also popular support. Let me put that popular support and consent in the context. When we say manufacture, let me use word called those consents are manufactured consent, and popular support is also manufactured one. Because many a time we had not seen in the past that government many times don't want, they're not, they don't want to support to defend themselves. Many times those who are not in the government, those who are not part of the state are able to articulate and proactively support government on various policies like anything. So many times you don't need government to come out openly and support their various project, development project or various policies. Before they say something, you can find number of channels and anchor comes in and number of columnists and comes and start writing article on that and create an atmosphere in support of government. Just look at the alliance which is happening, which is unfortunate, which we generally expect that such alliance should happen for the Human Development Index, for the human rights. But here, two completely suppressed people, you can see the alliance of media. When I say media, not all. Social media, I don't say all social media, but media, social media, state, government, non-state actor, manipulation and intimidation, and which also have a combination of Hindutva ideology and the liberalization. all this has a good alliance to create an atmosphere of fear in the mind of people. And this alliance, you can not, it's like ongoing. Every now and then, every day, in one form or other form, this comes in. This basically creates a situation where you will find people not coming out openly and raising questions. That does not mean that people don't have questions. So if you talk to people on the ground, because I'm working at the grassroots level in many areas, when you talk to them, they may have some sympathetic viewpoint on some issue with the government, but as far as certain basic principles are concerned, they are quite vocal and opposed to it. But unfortunately, the situation is such that they are not able to come out openly, and it's a duty of people like us to create a situation where people are allowed, that is one, and people feel comfortable to raise their voice, to express what they think on various issues. That's a situation. Every mornings when we wake up nowadays, it's like we look for what will happen. That first question will there. And when you look at the headline on newspaper, you always think that what next in terms of tension, in terms of intimidation, in terms of many things. And some of them become new normals. Some of the action on the part of government and the state, which are, if you ask formally to anybody, even lawyer or the retired judges, they will say this is against the constitution, but that become normal and nobody counters that, and those things are justified in public domain. The unfortunate part is that many things got legitimized. They wanted to change the law. They were able to change many laws like labor laws, environment laws. They've done lots of manipulation, that come out with many projects which was not demanded by the people and imposed on them, and that lead to number of land acquisition thing had happened. But if you look at this project and other things, the way they are brought in, their illegality has been legitimized in public domain by media, by social media, by many people who support their ideology has brought in those legitimacy. So one of the crucial things which I strongly feel that the first fight we need to fight is to stop legitimization of this illegal action on the part of the state and government and non-state actor, which are in violation openly with the international agreement and number of other things. The one of the crucial thing we find that, let me even look at me critically as an activist. See, many of the things what happened that our struggles are not just, we should not limit this struggle just in the terms of electoral battle. It's not a just simple electoral battle to be fought. This basically struggle is a struggle of ideology. It's a legal, it's on the ground, everyday struggle to be fought. And unfortunately, what happened that when you use religion for your convenient purpose to communalize people, the 5,000 year history and the people's belief are manipulated, manufactured, misused in many ways, and they have space for them. And unfortunately, what happened, the people who take up the people's issue are unable, they raise their issue either in seminar, before the judiciary, in terms of campaign at the gate, when in public spaces. But the time has come that we should be in next to their door, be part of their life, to discuss with them and help them to articulate number of things which they strongly feel. And unfortunately, they are expressing their anger in a very wrong way. So that's one of the crucial things which I strongly feel. And the last point which I just want to make that is, these are not things happening ad hocly. Let me slowly cover this very crucial point, because these are not ad hoc action on the part of state and government. These are very systematic things has been brought in with number of plan together from all sides. So when we talk in terms of fight back, we should keep in mind that this struggle of ours for social justice and human rights and peace and justice should not be worked out in terms of just ad hoc fight, spontaneous fight. That's a very crucial thing I want to brought in. That's one. Second, we also have to keep in mind that this struggle which we are facing now, the repression which we are facing now, has been brought in very systematically, well planned, well thought for many decades. So when we plan our action, we should have a threefold plan. One is immediate, because you cannot just wait for your long-term action plan. Immediate, interim, and very long-term plan. If we don't work out our long-term plan and we only keep in mind our short-term immediate fight back, I'm really worried that we will not able to fight this ideology which has created a havoc. Basically, the democracy is absolutely at the stake, and it's not. I'm not just referring people who are opposing government or the state. Basically, those even inside and supporting them are also not able to come out and speak openly on certain issue and policy matter where they don't agree with them. So it's a very long-term fight to be fought, and we have to work out very new, innovative way of fighting back. The two things I just want to mention at the end. One is that if you just look at the scenario, what we are fighting, the people who are opposing this state and government are people taking up livelihood issue. They are on the land issue, whether it's a forest, whether it's a river pollution, whether it's a contamination of food, whether it's a Dalit right, tribal right, whether it's a forest right act, whether it's a right to information. You will find people belong to this group are raising questions, and they are intimidated. Just look at the other side. You don't find the people who are creating a havoc, who are creating an intimidation. They don't have history of taking up people's issue. I just want to contest that, can those forces list out? Suppose take an example of Kashmiri Pandit. Let's have our file and their file in front of that. What we did as an activist, as a movement for those people when the issue came up, and what they did up till now. Just look at on the issue of water, what they did. On the price rise, what they did. On various legislation which people wanted, like Right to Information, Domestic Violence Act, number of other things, they are not there. So those people who are not there on people's issue are ruling. That is one, not just ruling as a government, but also ruling the mind of the people. And that's a major issue for us to fight back. And that's a very crucial issue to be considered when we take up task for immediate action and long-term action. Thank you.
Thank you, Rohit Sahib. And let's the second session, the second part is basically a moderated question and answer session from the audience. This will be conducted by our host, Dr. Rafat Hussain. Rafat, is it possible to show this slide for the upcoming? Yeah, before we go, unfortunately, poster is not ready yet. On coming Saturday, we have a topic on Tipu Sultan and Hyder Ali, how Tipu Sultan and Hyder Ali influenced American War of Independence. It will be given by Professor Amin Ahmad.
Not next Saturday.
And supported by Dr. Nazir Ahmad and Dr. Muqtadar Khan. Coming Saturday is a major holiday for Muslims, Eid, so we are off on that day. So this will be on July 16. Okay, so let's move on to question and answer session. Rafat, you take care about this.
Yeah, thank you, Razi bhai. Okay, thank you all the speakers, Cedric, Prakash, Lara, Jesani, and Rohit Prajapati, for a brave talk and highlighting the situation in today's India. So the session, question and answer session, is open now. And there are two options. Either you show your interest in the chat box or you raise your digital hand. So let me see if there is any digital hand. But the first question goes to Dr. Nazir Ahmed. So please be brief, and I request the same for the speakers to be brief. Thank you. Nazir Saab. Unmute yourself, Nazir Saab. Unmute. Let me try. Try now. Okay.
Yes, yes, yes. I'd like to render my deep thanks to Father Prakash. I'd like to ask a question, taking the conversation one level up to the civilizational level. I believe it was Ali Shariati way back in the early 1970s who pointed out that the malaise that afflicts a society is a combination of ideology, politics, and money. And that's the disease that we see in India today, which manifests itself sometimes in hate, sometimes in persecution, sometimes in triumphalism, sometimes in the killing of priests, abuse of nuns, or lynchings, bulldozing, and so on. Now, the question that I'm asking myself is this: when you look at the remedy, the cure for this disease, most of the initiatives seem to come from the West. Do we ask ourselves, the spiritual reservoir that alone provides the material for the cure, is that absent from Indian society now? Are we not going to produce any more Saint Thomases or Amir Khusros, or for that matter, Buddhas and Gandhi? Must we always look to the West for inspiration for the cure? What is your opinion, sir? Have we exhausted our spiritual reservoir, or do we still have something left?
Yeah. If I could just brief, yours a very loaded question. I think it will need a whole several hours to try to answer it. But I would like to make 3 points. I think there is a lot of spirituality in India. I think the Indian people, by and large, are spiritual, and there's lots of fatalism too in India, especially where the poor are concerned. But it's an ideology which tries to take over the whole nation. That is an ideology of Hindutva. It is not because there is a lack of spiritual people. Okay, we still have many holy people, many holy women and men in India from across the faiths, even among the Hindus, great people. But when a fascist ideology takes hold with full kind of legitimization from a fascist regime, then it's very, very difficult. So what is happening is not only imitating the West or materialism. Maybe in some places there is a spiritual vacuum, but what I want to humbly submit is that we are fighting against an ideology which has nothing to do with faith, which has nothing to do with spirituality. It's about power. It's about assertion. It's about domination. It is about the destruction of democracy, about the pluralistic fabric of India. That is why they demonize everybody else. So yes, we may need spiritual leaders, like I would say, like St. Thomas. We celebrate 1,950 years tomorrow since he was martyred in India. It's a great day for the Indian Christians, both in India and in the diaspora. But it's also important to realize that there are many spiritual people in India today. people who give their life in a very anonymous way in the service of others, irrespective of the religious divide.
Thank you. The next question is from Victor Ghalib Saab. I can read the question. What are the implications of the horrible Udaipur killing of Hindus by two Muslims? May be connected to Pakistan, in India and their reputation internationally. Indian Muslims have been very peaceful. What do you think of those implications of the Udaipur killing?
Lara, you want to respond?
Yeah, Lara is, the video is off.
Yeah, no, she's there.
No, I'm sorry, I'm right here. I just put the video off to conserve some, to hear more clearly. I think the repercussions are, are massive when it comes to any kind of, any kind of incident that can be communally flared up. It's extremely horrific, the manner in which this killing has taken place, and it's condemnable. And all of us, I think, even people from the community, from Muslims have, Muslim organizations have condemned it. The civil society has condemned it. Civil liberties organizations have condemned it. And they have also, in very, very strong words, a lot of the secular Muslim organizations have written against Islamic fundamentalism and have said that such kind of extremism will not be tolerated in India. Yet, when similarly, lynchings take place of Muslims, when we've seen so many mock crimes, hate crimes against Muslims in the name of, cow slaughter or love jihad, or, just generally hate crimes that have taken place in very communally charged environments, we don't see that kind of condemnation coming in. We see a lot of impunity that is given to the offenders, and there is a justice itself is very inequitable. So in these scenarios are so starkly different. When a Muslim is under attack, and what has happened in this unfortunate incident where Kanhaiya Lala Taylor, was killed in Rajasthan by two Muslim fanatics. The responses are very, very starkly different from the judiciary, from the police administration. In this case, and NIA has already been assigned the case. There has been an SIT that has been set up. There are so many kinds of actions. UAPA has been imposed on the people. They were arrested. The investigation is going on. It's underway. There are so many linkages that they're trying to bring in. So this kind of action, this kind of response, we do not see on the other side. So I think the point that I'm trying to make is that what is problematic, we all want that those who are responsible for this be punished in the strictest terms, and that any kind of hate crimes in India, whether it is against any community, must definitely get a very get urgent response. Those who are responsible for such offenses be taken to task. We want that justice is delivered to the victims, compensation is delivered to them. So we are all advocating for it. But what is happening over here, that each of these incidences are being politicized, that they are being used as an excuse to further more hate politics, to communalize the situation, to hate on ordinary Muslims who do not believe in violence, who do not believe in such extremist ideology, but become targets. And this becomes another excuse, such kind of incidents, to disturb the communal harmony, to disturb the friendship between the communities, the love between the communities. So I think these are, actual fears that we have. The manner in which such kind of incidents can actually be communalized is a very stark reality over here. It's a very unfortunate reality over here. So there will definitely, I can't anticipate what they will do out of this case and how they will keep using it, but definitely there is a huge amount of communalization that takes place on the basis of this. And it is for us, peace-seeking citizens and justice-seeking citizens, and those who are fighting for rights, to ensure that their agendas do not succeed, they do not manage to create hate between communities, and they do not manage to, further this kind of hate politics. So I think us who love the country, who love the peace and harmony in our country, who stand for the Constitution, I think a lot of responsibility rests on us as well to ensure that they don't succeed in that agenda. But it is getting far more difficult to respond.
Thank you. The next person is Ashok Saab, and his question is, what is the hope to save constitution values? I think this question is for Prakash Saab or anyone else.
Maybe Rohit would be a more.
Okay.
Rohit, why don't
Rohit
you
Saab.
respond?
Rohit Saab.
Yeah, see, there are struggle going on in spite of what we said up till now, there was reality. But if you just look at the map of the India, and if you just start pointing the mark on that map, the struggle which people are taking up for many issues, and many of them are also spontaneous struggle by the people. Many of them are also spontaneous struggle by. And if you combine and map those struggle, then you, unfortunately, you will be asking question to yourself that why these are not reflected in Parliament or State Assembly. That's a question to people like us, we always ask. If I just give you the example of Gujarat, if you just start from, if people know from Mumbai coming down to the Gujarat side, if you just start from Sarigam, Vapi, you can find people struggling on many issues and able to articulate many things, able to go to the court and able to manage many things in terms of rights, in terms of getting some of the project cancelled, some of the projects are ongoing. So in that sense, if I just don't look at the TV channel, that's one. If I don't just read the mainstream media and read the mainstream newspaper, if I do have direct contact, this invisible people, then I'm really hopeful that the fight is on. Unfortunately, the many places, some of the things are not going out. That's why I use, people may disagree with me, that's why I use word called manufactured consent. That was the word, and manufactured popular support. That was I was mentioning. Many of them are not in public fora, but these are things on the issue of development. Let me put one rider mod. These are all issues with reference to the development model of the particular state of the nation people are struggling. When it comes down to in terms of Hindu-Muslim, it's very problematic, even in the struggle. In that sense, one way I'm very hopeful that we will able to fight back in terms of protecting the constitution. But unfortunately, those struggles are not able to get converted and not able to understand and able to internalize the conflict which has been forefront since now many decades in India, or even I can say across the world in many ways. That's the unfortunate part. But I think judicial activism is also on the forefront. You can find many judgments and many problematic things happening in the judiciary, but you find also some hope. And that's why I think we need to make intervention in all fora, including judiciary, on the ground, even inside the state, because there are many people who really want to do something and they are also isolated. If I just look at separate state and government, there are many state actors inside, those who are not ready to accept their master's line or master's policy and would not like to defend. Even they also need support from the civil society to come out and say certain things openly. So in that sense, it's hopeful, but I'm really worried with the issue of this communal conflict. And that's very problematic and very complex, need to be done. The way Lara was explaining that about this Udaipur thing, I'm really worried that both fundamentalist act is actually pouring water to grow instead of peace and justice, unfortunately. And people like us are in dilemma how to counter both on the spot, immediate, for a longer battle. And that's
Thank you.
yeah, Congrats.
Thank you, Rohit Saab. The next person is Rudranshu Singh, and after that, Frank Kishner. Go ahead, Rudranshu. I unmuted you.
Thank you, sir, very much. I have two very small questions, one to Lara and one to Father. To Lara, I would like to ask that recently the Supreme Court paved the way for the collapse of the Maharashtra government. Sorry to say that. I'm a lawyer myself. So do you think we are banging our heads against the wall? Because if the apex court does not come to our rescue, then how can we pursue our fight?
I think that's the kind of dilemma that we're all facing as lawyers as well. Because like Father Cedric Prakash also said, and I also spoke earlier, we had a lot of faith in the Indian judiciary to intervene in matters of violations, to intervene in matters of such kind of collapses, and to also pass orders that will uphold the constitution, will protect our democratic structure. And of late, what we have seen is that it is, in fact, the Supreme Court, either by inaction, like they did when there was a challenge to the CAA, there was a challenge to the Article 370 or internet shutdowns, or in case of electoral bonds, they did not take up those matters. They did not pass any orders at all, to prevent the situation. Then also, like we have seen the kind of orders that they have been passing, whether it is the judgments relating to land acquisition, whether it is denying bail to to human rights activists, whether it is what happened with the Maharashtra government, we saw where they refused to intervene and they refused to stay the floor test. It was extremely, and also they did it in a manner where after they heard it, they kept it back at 9 o'clock. And then they said that they are staying the floor test. So these, by just not passing any kind of a bit, while it's very public, what is happening. It's not any close secret. We can see the manner in which the MLAs are bought, they are defecting, who's paying for them at the hotels, who's actually ensuring that who's ensuring that they can travel without even an idea, without even a sort of a clue to the people in Maharashtra that there is going to be this kind of defection that is taking place. It's obviously supported by larger interests. It's obviously politically motivated. It is obviously sponsored. And yet, in spite of it being so public, in spite of so many of these things being so public, we have seen the courts not intervene. The manner in which, for instance, Teesta was arrested, right? A day after the Zakia Jafri judgment, to not suo moto intervene and clarify that there is no order that we have passed that she should be arrested or that she should be taken in. So these kind of things do make us wonder whether we are banging our head against the wall when we go to court. But at the same time, we have to stretch the limits. We don't have a choice. You see, one very important point that we always keep making as lawyers here is that going to courts is not the first resort. Going to courts has always been the last resort, that even as civil society, we've taken on as lawyers, that we've taken on, people are taking. It is only when all the other avenues fail that we are going to court, right? Because that already shows, that the kind of faith that one would have in getting the orders, getting the intervention that is required is obviously, shaken right now. But when it comes down to it, we have no choice but to go to court. And we have to keep pushing the limits. We have to keep demanding that accountability from the courts as well, not just from the state, not just from the independent bodies, but also from the courts, because they were the pillar of democracy that was supposed to stand by us. Similarly, the media, it's another pillar that we've lost, and that has led to this, mass hate, this spread of hate, the spread of, this kind of politics, okay, has also come because the media has played an active role. The bought out corporate media, 85% mainstream media, has played an active role in promoting it, and also making people and communities vulnerable. So we have to, however, keep holding them accountable and demanding that in some cases, very rare cases, maybe 5% of the cases, you do succeed when you try really hard to demand accountability. But yes, it is a really tough battle because we don't have that space in any of these, sort of advocacy areas. We don't have it, whether we are litigating in courts, whether it is in the government, whether it is on the streets, space to protest or space to organize as civil societies, space to intervene in human rights cases. The space is shrinking. Our democratic spaces are shrinking, but we're trying to grip as much as we can to the spaces that remain and try and expand them.
Thank you, Lara. So next question is for Father Cedric. It is from Frank Krishner. The culture of fear and silence is spreading and liberal voices are being silenced. How to address this fear?
Yeah, first of all, the only way to address fear, to address people who are forced to silence, is to stand up, be visible, and speak out. There is no other way. Because the more you fear, whether it's from civil society, whether it is from liberal citizens, and so on, the more they will get the upper hand. Because the way they've been exploiting people, whether it is politicians from the opposition parties, they start blackmailing them. They start making huge files on them. Okay, like we saw even in Maharashtra that Lara just referred to earlier. Politicians are blackmailed. Media is blackmailed. They are forced to keep quiet. Human rights activists, and this whole, the way they abuse the FCRA against NGOs, against faith-based organizations is tremendous. And they have no problem in getting any amount of foreign funds for all their things, misusing, abusing the taxpayers' money, raking in the mullah from increasing the prices of fuel, of diesel, of petrol, and but then they intimidate, they harass. So there is this culture of fear that has set in the country, definitely. People are frightened. I have any amount of my friends telling me that they're frightened. They're frightened about their careers, their jobs, their families, their children. We have seen, they go and bulldoze houses. They put you in jail. They fabricate charges. They make fake allegations. They tell a lie 1,000 times. They denigrate you. Definitely there is fear. But the only way by which to counter that fear is whatever the price, like Stan Swami, you'll have to pay the price. Some of us will have to pay the price. The three of us are speaking here today. We really do not know what is going to happen to any three of us tomorrow. Whether we'll meet the same fate as Stan Swami or maybe languishing in jail like Muhammad Zahir or Tista or Sri Kumar or Sanjeev Bhatt or whoever. Yeah. But the only way by which we can create courage and fearlessness in this country is to be visible and vocal, stand up and speak out for justice, for truth, for those who are suffering in our country today.
Thank you. Next is Nidhi Jain, please. She's from Udaipur.
Namaste. Yeah. Namaste, sir. Because सवाल पूछा था किसी ने उदयपुर के बारे में. I am from उदयपुर. तो ये जो कुछ भी घटना हुई उसमें this is my experience कि मैं इतने सालों से उदयपुर में रह रही हूँ. कभी भी हमने वहाँ के मुस्लिम सीधे साधे समुदाय को इतना एग्रेसिव नहीं देखा. ये जो भी थे वो लोग, और पूरे मुस्लिम कम्युनिटी को इस तरीके से बदनाम किया जा रहा है पूरे संभाग में, पूरे राज्य में, और माहौल इतना खराब है कि कुछ कहा ही नहीं जा सकता है. और जैसा कि सर ने कहा कि हम स्पीक ही एक वे है, और जब हम स्पीक करते हैं तो हम उसकी सजा भुगतते हैं, चाहे वो किसी भी तरीके से सजा दी जाए, सिविल सोसाइटी के रूप में दी जाए, इंस्टीट्यूशंस के रूप में दी जाए, किसी मतलब हमें तो सजा भुगतनी ही है. और जो ये माहौल है, यहाँ इंटरनेट बंद है, और उसके बावजूद नूपुर या जैसे भी जो भी XYZ लोग हैं, जिन लोगों ने इस तरीके कमेंट्स किए, उन लोगों के लिए तो कभी कोई सजा थी ही नहीं. सजा तो उन्हीं लोगों के लिए थी जिन्होंने एक्शन किया. और टॉलरेंस की भी हद होती है. तो 2014 से टॉलरेंस ही हो रहा है, और इससे ज्यादा तो क्या होगा। तो आई एम वेरी सैड अबाउट ऑल द सिचुएशन, क्योंकि हर स्टेट में इंटरनेट बंद कर दिया गया। बोलने के लिए तो हक है ही नहीं, मीडिया तो खैर है ही, कलम हमारी चलती है तो छापता ही नहीं है, क्योंकि हमें स्पीक टू राइट सिर्फ कहानी में ही कहा गया है। आज का भास्कर अखबार आप उठा के यहाँ का लोकल देख लें तो उसमें इस्लामिक कट्टरपंथियों की कहानी में उसको गढ़ दिया गया, जो कुछ उदयपुर में हुआ, जबकि ऐसा कुछ है ही नहीं। इतना सीधा साधा शहर है, शांति प्रिय और पर्यटक स्थल है। तो things are very bad, and I'm very sorry to say about the situation. Very sorry. तो बहुत दुखी है, बहुत दुख है इस देश में। पता नहीं कब कहाँ कैसे अंत होगा इन सब चीजों का, समझ नहीं आ रहा है।
Thank you. Abdul Jabbar Saab is next, and after that is Sharmila.
So thank you. As a remarkable presentations by three courageous people. Really, my hats off to each one of you. I came to this country 41 years ago. I left India, 1981, but I'm still connected to India in some way, only academic institution, where I got my PhD, Madurai Kamaraj University. For the last 40 years, I've changed changes in the academic institutions that reflecting the society itself. The most important thing I noticed, the corruption of institution, especially the academic institutions. Nowadays, what they have done to become a vice chancellor, you have to bribe people, the politicians, to engross. So I was part of it 12 years ago. I wrote a letter to the vice chancellor at that time. It came out in the newspaper that he really bribed people. He was bribed to really occupy academic, higher academic, professors. So I think it's a very symptomatic of Indian society per se. I think you are talking about this is this is evolution for the last 75 years. This did not happen last 10 years or 20 years. So I think what we have reached this stage during the slowly chipping away some of the moral fabric of the society. So you gave us hope, but I think each one of you briefly, can you tell me as an outsider, basically I'm an outsider looking inside, what kind of hope you project to India based on experiences? Thank you.
Rohit Saab, you wanted to take, or
Yeah,
any one of you?
Unfortunately, what you are saying is happening to many institutions, not just the education, but many people are, the way Father was telling, the people should come out openly and say something. And if you want, not just the people who are in the movement and are known people make a point of view openly saying something on such issue, I think it's a duty on the part of many of us. I'm just telling me also, many of us, to create an atmosphere where people have lost the hope. People think that I will not able to make any change. It's not in my capacity. That ideological onslaught which is there in the mind of people, and at least last 10-15 years, it has settled down like a new normals, that yes, this is what the world will be, and this is what is going to be a reality, and you have to adjust with that. And that particular things, if we are able to make change, even I tell you, in an education institution, is happening at large scale. We just recently had one fact finding which of PCDS, People's Commission of Sinking Democratic Space, where it was about education institution. And I think we can upload and we can send you the copy of that report. You will be surprised to know that the people who are basically belong to an institution where we expect them to teach people to question. When the testimony came in, we had lots of testimony from professor and lecturer saying that don't mention our name. and write a report in a manner in which that people cannot locate us or identify us. That's what the scenario is. But that does not mean that those who provided a testimony, those who deposited, were not able to articulate. They were knowing, they were very angry, they wanted to do something. That is what the reality is. And we have to work out between this reality and the fight back together.
I wanted to add just one thing, that you asked, what is the hope? I think the hope are the students. I think, students have resisted this very, very strongly here. Even when we did this fact finding that the People's Tribunal that Rohit Bhai is talking about, there were 130 testimonies from students who actually spoke out. I think that is the hope. That is the 38 universities that came out and spoke about the manner in which their campuses, were losing space. They had lost space on the campuses, how there were political appointments, how there was bias, how there was, criminalization of students who were protesting against fee hikes and privatization of universities, who actually came out and spoke about it, and who have led struggles, who have been criminalized, who have had FIRs against them, who have, faced disciplinary action in the campuses for actually speaking out. And we have, I can give examples after examples of university students who've actually protested and who've actually, resisted these kind of changes that have come in. So I think the hope lies with those students. I also think the hope lies with, the faculties who came out and stood by those students. So there is a future generation of people who are going to resist. And I have a lot of hope in that.
I think that one element of it. The other element, political element at this juncture. I posted one of the nicest analysis somebody did in the Indian Express. The political element is very important. If the politicians, opposition parties don't have the moral fiber in them to oppose, because they themselves kind of in their own way, they're not moral. Okay, they're not practicing, they're impulsive to Modi's government, whoever is in power. But if you don't have the moral fiber in your political system, like what the Congress Party lost some time ago, then you have a problem. It's a big vacuum to really fill in. How do you do that? You guys are doing the great job, courageous job of articulating what constitution means for India, but so then there's at the very basic level, at the ground level, the people are suffering. So politicians are corrupt. So how do you really bring the balance and bring that kind of balance to the system? That's what I'm trying to see whether Father Cedric Prakash could elaborate on that.
Thank you, sir. It's a very loaded question. And I think we need balance. We need to have a vision. We need, what Lara says, to kind of have hope and to nurture hope among the young. We are here today because those of us are here, including, I'm sure, the audience, certainly Lara, Rohit, and myself, have hope. We have hope for the future of India, that will restore India to the greatness to which India belonged, which our freedom fighters gave us 75 years ago. In the last few years, especially from 2014 and definitely from 2019, as I said earlier, all that is sacred in India is slowly but systematically being destroyed. And yes, we need a concerted opposition. We need to have politicians, which is very difficult, who have the good of the people in their hearts, who are not corrupt, who cannot be bought up, who cannot be blackmailed. We need a sense of movement towards an India which is unified, which has the glory of the past, in which we gave ourselves King Ashoka. We still use, the Ashok Chakra, and that wheel of Dharam there has a national icon. It's there in our flag. It is in terms of Dharam, in terms of duty. We have those three colors of the tricolor. We have a beautiful national anthem, which gives us some kind of motivation. How do we take India, the future of India, towards the glory of the past? The past, which great visionaries like Nehru and Gandhi and Sardar Patel and Sarojini Naidu and Rabindranath Tagore and many others gave India from across the religious, the cultural, the ethnic divide. They believed in the idea of India. They worked for it. And now I think it's time for more and more of us to gather together, to commit ourselves relentlessly. Not as Rohit was reminding us, we cannot be sporadic. We cannot be ad hoc. We cannot do a commitment for just this cause, only for the cause of Muslims or for the Christians or for the Adivasi or for the Dalits. No, India is a composite whole. It is beautiful. It is pluralistic. So we need to work together, and we say we are all brothers and sisters. Let us work together for a united India based on harmony, on eklas, Komi eklas, on nyay, on justice, and on shanti, on peace.
Thank you. Great.
Very nice. Sharmila ji's question is for lawyers. Can anyone get into Rajya Sabha without paying? What is the law?
Lara,
what is the law?
I hope Lara gets into Rajya Sabha without paying.
I don't know. I mean, I frankly don't think any of us are getting anywhere into the government anytime.
No, is there any law? Is there any law against it?
See, the thing is that technically, I mean, no one can, you can't pay. Corruption is not, supposed to be allowed. But at the same time, in terms of, we don't have any act which looks into corruption, except for, we have, Money Laundering Act, and we have, those kind of acts which do not allow officers from taking bribes. And that is the only protection that you have. But if you ask me practically, if anyone can get into Rajya Sabha without paying money, then in today's time, we can't really say. So, yeah, legally, of course, it is prevented. Of course, there has also been, in fact, this government which came riding on the back of an anti-corruption movement. Where there was a very strong demand for a Lokpal bill or for a bill that prevents corruption. And we haven't seen any of that go far after that.
We have never had a government more corrupt today.
Yeah, I don't think there has been, financial corruption or moral corruption of this level ever in India. And especially the kind that, cannot be prosecuted, the kind that, is given full impunity. I don't think there has ever been of that level, in India. And also the second thing that, one of the biggest, manifesto promises that the BJP government made when it came in 2014 was that it will stop black money. It will bring back black money. It will bring back the money in Swiss banks and everywhere. And none of that happened. We're supposed to deposit 15 lakh rupees in each and every account in India, but that also never happened. So while it came riding on the anti-corruption movement, we haven't seen any new laws coming in which prevent corruption, except for demonetization, which was an act to cripple the Indian economy. And we didn't see any other thing that was done on corruption. So no, we don't have any new laws that have come in which prevent corruption, but there are legal provisions available. Of course, enforcement has become far more difficult today. In fact, many of these laws are in fact being used against those who raise their voice. There's ED which is being sent. There are different investigating agencies which have been activated at the central level in order to weaponize the law against opposition party people, civil society, and all of that. But no, we don't really have anything.
Thank you. So Lara ji, Dr. Singh quoted the Prevention of Corruption Act 1988. Thank you. Next person is Razaullah Qureshi. Please unmute yourself and go ahead.
Thank you. First of all, my name is Rajaullah with Jim, not Razaullah.
Okay, my apologies.
No problem. I know most people have that problem. But actually, I sent a note to Razi Sahab that I wanted to only comment. My question is not to the speaker. So if you like, you can recognize me later. Very brief comment. So it's up to you. You want to continue and give me a chance later?
Yeah, go ahead and quick comment, whatever
Okay.
comment.
Okay. So actually, my comment really was not on the speakers. It's a wonderful conversation and discussion going on, and we're hopefully collectively trying to zero in what can be done. Nobody knows really the clear answer how we can solve the problem. We all have recognized, but I have one feeling, a conviction actually, and we all know that in Hindi, in Sanskrit, I think it's written everywhere. I think probably in our emblem, India's emblem, Satyameva Jayate, which means truth will prevail. So we should not have to ever worry about that the fact that we will not overcome. And like other presidents, leaders here have said, we shall overcome. The question is how and when and what should be the approach. I think personally that the approach has to be the public movement, mass movement. And there are people who are working like Professor Tripathi and many others, Sadbhav Mission and many others, Khudai Khidmatgar, Faisal Khan and all that this movement has to be supported by all. And we should try that everybody joins. This is a movement to bring harmony, love, affection, and you can always beat hate with love and affection. So it's not easy, but that's the only way. I think we have example of Gandhiji and others that they started with a few people and they made such a big movement. So if you are with the truth, I think truth will prevail. My comment on really on the young lady from Udaipur, Nidhi Jain, I really can feel the pain for her. I'm from Madhya Pradesh and Maharashtra, Nagpur, Jabalpur area, but I have visited Rajasthan, including Udaipur, and I was fascinated really by my visits. And I really can share the pain, what happened. In fact, all of us do. One thing I think we all know, the Muslims, all organizations and Muslims have completely denounced and condemned in the strongest way, because there can be no justification according to Islam and any religion of what these people have done. So condemning is one thing. And like she said, that we really need to understand why something like that do happen. And my feeling, again, we can only guess, even the creation of ISIS in overseas. We don't have ISIS in India, as far as I know. But even creation, these are all creations of vested interests. They have nothing to do with religion. And same way, these people, yes, religions are used, just like Hindutva ideology is used. So we should not lose heart on that. And I would strongly convey this message to Nidhi that again, public contact, meeting with each other, those are very important there when you have tense situation. So that was only my comment about that we share the pain. Thank you.
Thank you, Qureshi sir. And my apologies for mispronouncing your name. And the last person is Iltafat Hassan. Go ahead, Iltafat, bye.
Yeah, thank you, Rafat. The way, I mean, first of all, my hats off to the people who are working on this project and trying to reduce the hatred in India. But at a national level, I think India needs an opposition party, and a strong opposition party, which will fight the BJP philosophy. And very unfortunately, Congress is no more. It's not, it's there, but in name only, it's not the party it used to be. And there is no other party which goes across the country. And without that, I think people who are in this forum and others who are fighting for the secularism in India, the chances of success are not very high. So are there any signs that a strong opposition party in terms of a national party which can fight Congress throughout BJP throughout the country is emerging? Because Congress, I don't see much hope for. Thanks.
I have no comment on this. I do not know. I wish we had a strong opposition, a united opposition. And that's my hope, that's my prayer, because you need a political movement in the country as it was done during the emergency or whatever it is. And just now, for the time being, the political opposition is very fragmented. Let's hope and pray that because everyone has their own agenda, and I have no brief for any single political party at this moment.
Thank you.
I just have a small comment. I think we can discuss this at a length also sometimes separately. Unfortunately, what happened that what was expected from the cadre-based party, what was expected that from the, like people used to say in Marxist circle, Leninist concept of party building and cadre building is happening on the other side, not on this side, in a wrong way. So I just want to look at, we should review the past in terms of, if you just look at rise of BJP, from Johnson to BJP, you will find many alliances happen with them. And many legitimacy has been given by many parties and many leaders in one way or other way. They had seen one government where on the right side there was a BJP, on the left side there was a left party, and VP Singh was there. And we had seen keeping Congress out and such alliance. So I just, in one line, if I have to say that we should not be hurried in terms of putting up the alternate in a very immediate way in terms of what political party can come up, and then it's going to be a long battle and needs to be a long-term plan, and not just in terms of, we always looked at things in immediate fight back, in terms of election also, electoral battle. It should not be thought in terms of immediate fight back. I know it's very urgent, but I think there's no choice left but to have a very long-term plan for such thing and not the short one.
Thank you. So before I hand over to Razi Saab, please allow me to ask a question, quick question. So India is supposed to be, or it is considered the largest or biggest democracy in the world. And in only last couple of years, the democracy is being destroyed, as Father said, and everyone knows that it is being trampled, is being degraded. So I have been scratching my head, rather bald head, that was the Indian democracy was not deep-rooted? Was there any flaws in it? How come the people in only couple of years got from best democratic world to all the laws you see in Constitution are being trampled? So do you guys, you are learned, you see the world every day. I'm a scientist, I'm not a politician, but I can only think of. So what do you think? Was not it a deep-rooted, or is just superficial, and it was like a house of cards which is falling very fast?
Yeah, I really don't think it's only about 75 years. We are talking about 100 years from 1925, when the RSS first emerged. Look at what they were saying at that time. Look at the patriotism they showed to the British. Look at the fact that none of them were freedom fighters. Okay? They wanted to usher in a Hindutva state where all others are second-class citizens, and particularly the lower caste, the Dalits, the Adivasis, the Christians, the Muslims and so on. It's all there. It is written in Golkar's bunch of thoughts and so on. So their agenda, their construct has been working for the last 100 years. I think we got independence 75 years ago in 1947 on a sound footing. But democracy, to be planted in any soil, whether it is in France or the United States or in several democracies across the world, I think takes time. And one of the things that we have not been fast enough by taking democracy to the grassroots. You know, we spoke about Panchayati Raj. We had the Nai Talim of Mahatma Gandhi. We had the village self-rule. We had the Patalgadis of the Adivasis and so on. But we were really, through education, not able to take it. It became the monopoly of a few urban, educated, rich, and perhaps, the Brahminical class who dominated Indian society for a long time, okay, without empowering the vast majority. But what we had just now, especially the 2014, is a total collapse of political parties that were wedded to democracies, wedded to the Constitution of India. So it is not just falling like a pack of cards, okay? We still have hope, but we are talking about the bulldozing. We need to take out the bulldozers, stop the bulldozing, and I think there is still hope. Indian democracy has not collapsed. I'm clear about that, because the vast majority of the Indian people still believe in democracy, still believe in a secular state, still believe in a socialistic pattern, but we need visionary, selfless leadership to take this country, and political leadership to take this country forward. I'm not sure whether I'll see it in my lifetime, but hopefully the youth of the country will ensure that. And India will never be, India is a failing state at this moment, but will never become a failed state, I believe. The dark tunnel that we are going through will be overcome. Nazi Germany was quelled. Mussolini's fascism was quelled. The apartheid of South Africa was quelled. But democracy doesn't grow overnight. It takes time. And we have to ensure that it's built up.
So I can infer that is the Indian democracy is not mature enough yet. Thank you.
Yeah, it's growing.
Yeah, it's growing.
But can I add one comment?
Yeah, please go ahead, and then I hand over to Dr. Raziuddin.
See, democracy as a whole throughout the world is actually very young. I think oldest democracy is in England, maybe US also, but we are talking a couple of hundred years.
Yeah.
And France. So we are talking, 200 or 300 years. The rest of the humanity has been ruled by autocrats, kings, and nawabs and what have you. So democracy as an institution is very young and it's not very deep rooted. What we are seeing in America is not very different than what's happening in India. The same thing is happening in parts of Europe. So
Iltifat bhai, the question is how many 100 years it takes to be democratic. So if it is 250 years not enough, then there is no hope.
Rafat, I don't know. I don't have the answer because, on one side you have thousands of years of history, and on the other side you have a few hundred years and very few countries. Even today, a true democracy exists in few countries. The rest is, autocrats. So what is the hope?
But still the people in the US, majority of them are very democratic. They understand the democratic way, and there are fringe elements in Trump era or in India, the Modi era. But anyway, I don't want to extend this discussion. Back to Razi bhai.
Thank you, Rafat. So before I conclude, allow me to give the mic or space for a minute to Dr. Mozam Siddiqui to express how he felt about today's talk and what the message we need to spread. And then I can ask a question and conclude.
Sure. Go ahead. Mozam sir, please.
Unmute yourself. No. You cannot?
I
Yes.
did. I asked him.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So actually, Father Prakash, during his very moving presentation, read a very famous poem by Gurudev Tagore. And only 2 days ago, a living Bengali Nobel laureate was, speaking somewhere, I don't remember exactly, and he said, India is facing the most serious problem. And that problem is the possible collapse of India as a nation. So, and as you know, Professor Amrita Sen is not given to exaggeration. So something
you are right.
that, so it is good to be optimistic, but to be pessimistic is realistic. So I am not as optimistic. I tend to agree with Professor Amrita Sen on this, So I'm sorry.
All right. So if that is the impression, but if that impression doesn't, it may be realistic somewhat, but that's not the impression that most of those Indians who are struggling would like to take it on, because this India is still very much struggling against that Hindutva forces, and there are visible forces in spite of all the odds against them. So one question, Father and Ms. Jesani, to you, when we see all these exploitation of law, I mean, they are using law against those who are defenseless, and they're exploiting in a way. Is there any way, last week or a couple of weeks back, Yogen Yadav was on the, giving the talk, and with him, Prashant Bhushan was here. So these are famous, advocates also. It seems that everybody is fighting. All these visible, civil rights activists are fighting. But what I see in India is still there is not a single cohesive legal cell like what we have ACLU type in America. ACLU is here. Even Muslims here have a very powerful care. So that kind of very powerful legal lobbying agency, I don't think in India we have any. There are many probably, but they are like, individual cells or so. Can this be created to take the fight on that level where anything happens becomes an instant legal discriminatory campaign, and it goes to all international bodies? Or is it possible that a single citizen, like in America, a citizen can probably sue the government on any issue? So is it possible that that kind of cell can take on the government unless you become more offensive legally, not to become violent, you become more offensive legally, or by all civil discourse means, unless you become that much visible and powerful to take it on, right? The sue, we are suing the government in the Supreme Court. At the same time, we can sue in international courts too, that citizens of India are at risk because of this, or a particular community is at risk because of this. So this cannot happen unless we have an agency. So who can stop establishing this kind of agency? Are there not legal legal opportunities are given to citizens in India to establish such a cell and take these things on a better, bigger, and more cohesive level? I'm asking to a lawyer as well as a fighter?
No, let Lara speak about the PUCL.
So there are, a lot of organizations. PUCL is one of them, and a lot of human rights lawyers who have been taking up these battles. When we talk about a lawyers network or a cohesive network, I want to highlight one very important thing that we all are aware of. But when we ask all of these questions about solutions and about, why is there no alternate, political opposition? Why do we have an alternate political leadership? Why do we not have, a legal network such as ACLU? We forget the context, of India. Because what we're facing right now under ruling party that is promoting a Hindu supremacist ideology, which is very which is heavily backed by mass organization like RSS, and when we're talking about that kind of authoritarian regime in power already in India. Okay, we're talking about a lot of shrinkage of space that has happened. It's not easy to function in India. It's not easy to do the work that is being done in India, even as civil society. And all these clampdowns that are there, it's not just on foreign funding. It's on protest. To just go and have a protest on the street is extremely difficult. Even when you take up cases for a defender or for a community that is targeted, the lawyers itself face a lot of scrutiny. So it's the space to create this kind of network, to go and do international advocacy is a huge exposure for people today in India. So the exposure, the risk is quite high. There is a lot of clampdown on organizations. So if an organization becomes very vocal, or if a person becomes very vocal, then you do face backlash. The organizations, their registrations are suspended. You can't go and you can't travel. They don't give you visa. There are a lot of clampdowns that are taking place. In such an environment, it is extremely difficult to build those kind of networks, but people are doing things at an individual level.
I mean, I was talking not about international. I was talking about within India, the lawyers or the activists.
So within India, to do international advocacy.
Cannot establish a national legal cell like anti-hate or anti-discriminatory cell or a defense league, that kind of thing.
So in order to do any kind of advocacy, whether it is advocacy within litigation advocacy within India, or even to take it up in international forums, or to even to have that kind of a network is a little difficult. Even a national level network that will do these things. Because what will this network do? Even if you have a defense league, what will the defense league do? It will go to court with cases. It will go and defend those whose houses are burned. It will go and take it to the international forums. It will go and raise it before the human rights institutions and bodies, right? So yes. The space to do some work like that itself is under attack. The people who are doing this work, who are frontlining this work, the lawyers itself are under attack. There's so many of the lawyers have been put behind bars. You have journalists who write something which is factual, go and report on the way they are picked up and they're put behind bars, right?
But that is precisely
it's very difficult to create something like this.
Immediately
as you create it will be under attack. So instead what people are doing is, so there are organizations who do this work. Of course, you have organizations like PUCL that do take up a lot of public interest litigations and causes for the poor, for the vulnerable groups. Also take up, have legal defense cells, but it is difficult to operate in an environment like this. But a lot of lawyers are doing this work at an individual level. There is a need, of course, for a network like this. There is immense.
I understand. Given all that situation, I think that is the precise reason. That's why such organizations come up under very dire situation. A force comes up. So the whole issue was like, I'm sure that there are smaller cells, but they're not becoming strong together. They could have become strong enough to take, because once they are under attack, that creates others outside the borders on the international scene. They see it that, my goodness, even the lawyers are under attack. Even these agencies who take up the cause of marginalized one are under attack. That becomes itself a story that, okay, that is their strength. So that is still, to me, I mean, I'm also involved in these things to see how it is functioning in India. It looks like it is time that those forces who are doing, they come together to do it on a more forceful way. That's the issue, I think. So anyway, this has been almost 2 hours, not almost 2 hours. It is a 2-hour session.
It's more than 2 hours, yeah.
Yeah, so it always becomes
Yeah,
like,
okay.
it goes
Yeah.
beyond 90 minutes. It's a very engaging session. Probably people got messages. They will carry these things. Some of them, certainly, it is going to spread. And this is how the, activism really does its job. It is sort of lobbying and carrying the message and bringing others into the fold. Father, very much thankful to you and Miss, Lara and
Jesani.
the Rohit Saab, all three, and hopefully we'll bring the team again because we have learned a lot and we got a lot of strength out of this. And thank you all. It's about very late in India, probably.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's 10:40 in India.
10:40, right. Well,
Okay.
it's not that late. Indians sleep very late. Actually, I heard that they go 1 or 2 in the night. So anyway,
Okay.
Thank you all. Please.
Thank you, everyone.
Feel free
Thank
to
you
go ahead.
all for all
Good
this.
night. Thanks,
Good night.
Razibai,
Thank
and
you.
thanks all in this Washington diaspora.
Thank
Let's
you.
hope that many see the YouTube, many more.
Sure.
And then, the more reactions we have from others, the better. Thanks to all.
Thank